I briefly forgot that I was in charge. So I was like,
scared when you see your face up there?
I did. I was like, well, I have at least 30 seconds to think my pleasant thoughts while Dave does the spiel. Welcome to the Dragon Friends stream. This is a new format that we're premiering tonight. It's called Chekhov's Sword after some discussion.
Or something like that.
Or something like that. Like that, but not like
but not that.
It might be.
You wanted to call it Chekhov's Gundam?
I did
really. You sold that high.
I wanted to call it Chekhov's Gundam so bad, and I was in a bit of a snit about it all afternoon.
Sorry.
But no, the idea behind this is with your help in the chat and with the five of us here, we are going to, in the next 2 hours, design you a one-shot adventure that you can play with your party. Whether or not that's possible, whether or not it's a good idea or not, I don't know, but this is what we're going to be doing. Somebody in the chat just said, is that Ben Jenkins? I thought it was Guy Montgomery. How very dare you?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, he's a famously handsome man.
Yeah,
New Zealand
Taskmaster. Yeah, Guy's very handsome.
Unfortunately, he said some very positive things about the coronavirus, but other than that...
Yeah, no, and he's really eating his words on those. But yeah, so that's the broad plan for tonight. And every episode of Chekhov's Gundam...
it's not called Chekhov's
Something
Gundam.
like that.
It's something like that.
we are going to pick a sort of very, very, very broad genre too, because a lot of this chat is going to be about that genre and about like interesting ways into it and what we like about it, what we don't. We're going to be drawing a little bit from like our seasons of Dragon Friends and how like me and Dave went about sort of working out how they went and how these guys went about sort of ruining it, enhancing it. But also that's a big part of the discussion, right? Like writing a story that is a story that you really love and that you think is a really rich world, but that you're not precious about when to make up a name at random, Michael Hing stomps all over it.
And so this is a trial. We're going to be putting it out as on the Patreon, I think probably on YouTube as well. We haven't really talked about that. If you like it, let us know, because we're trying to find other things that we can do, and we thought that this would be a fun way to do it. Some people in the past have said they really like the times that you and me have done planning sessions for Dragon Friends.
Yeah. So this is like part kind of thing about story and about like genre, and part like hopefully something that you can use.
And if you have a name for it, let us know, because I don't want it to be called Chekhov's Gundam.
Somebody said Chekhov's Gundam.
No, yeah, that was you. You're the one that said.
I simply enjoy the series.
The rule about Chekhov's gun is that if you've got a gun, it's got to be big. What's the rule?
The rule of Chekhov's gun is that if there's a gun introduced in Act 1, it must go off in Act 3. And I think I've bitched about this on one of the podcasts before.
Yeah.
But tell me how you use my gun.
Chekhov?
Chekhov?
You big fuck.
Who are you?
If that exact thing happens
I
in a
suggested
Chekhov
Chekhov's
play.
bum, but...
Yes!
So just quickly, I want to address some stuff in the thing. Someone's asking if I have a 5 o'clock shadow. I don't know if you can really call it a 5 o'clock shadow.
It's a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
I haven't shaved, is the headline there. Somebody's saying
You
I look
like... Oh, no, what did they say you look like?
They say I look like a retired CIA officer who betrays Chris Hemsworth.
You do look... Yeah,
We need to get you a baseball cap.
Do you know, when I read that out of my peripheral vision, I was like, I read that as a retired CIA officer portrayed by Chris Hemsworth. And I was like, I'm going to read that comment.
You do look like a PI that's just sat up on his sofa bed.
Let's all go around and say what we think Ben looks like.
Okay.
If you're only listening to the audio of the podcast, just imagine it. I think you look like a slightly cocky lieutenant of an up-and-coming capo in the underworld who thinks that he's willing to do what it takes, but he's going to get killed by the end of the episode.
Are you saying I look a bit like Ralphie from The Sopranos?
Yeah, you look like
That
Ralphie
is
from
it. Yeah,
The
you do look like
Sopranos.
Ralphie. I was going to say holiday hobo.
Holiday Hobo!
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
Shrimp boat captain.
Holiday Hobo has like a Hawaiian print bindle, I
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
And Eden?
A literary agent?
What?
Yeah.
You need to get a new agent.
Yeah, you know when you go into your agent under the freeway.
It's like literary agent or accountant or lawyer.
Very handsome homeless man. Thank you, of Frost
Dice.
and Flames.
No, what number
You've
is
seen
that?
these before.
That's 16.
How is that 6?
They go all the way
Oh,
up till
yeah.
20.
No, it looks like it says
I feel like I'm
looks like
talking
it
to
says
Mo. Like,
looks like it says
there's,
in.
there's a
Look at
1
it.
and a 6.
It's a G, Obi. Look at that. It's a G. That's a G.
No,
We can't go back.
I was
We
really
can't go
ready
back to talking about the shapes of the chives. It's been 7 years.
That was decahedron.
I just can't let this slide.
Yeah.
Dave looks like a small boy at the seaside.
You can't see below the desk, but it goes all the way down.
I bought this shirt and I like it a lot. So
Somebody get that man a giant lolly. So yeah, just to refer to Chekhov's Gundam, to what that refers to. I've always noted is if a gun's introduced in Act 1, it has to go off in Act 3.
Stupid.
It is. Well, here's the thing, Demi Lardner.
Bah.
In the Cherry Orchard, which Chekhov wrote.
Oh, it's a book.
It's
about a magic
Not just a
guy.
place that you take your fancy son.
It's not even cherry season. Shut up.
And he
Daddy,
knew
can we go to
that.
the cherry orchard? Daddy, Daddy, and the cherries in season.
Do you know that Moses Jenkins had a full-blown, like, 5-alarm, like, on the floor tantrum because he wanted a pomegranate and we didn't have any?
His mum got him the wrong figs.
One
Fuck's
time,
sake.
Milo was getting his like flu shot, and his grandmother was there, and he got it, and he started crying, and his grandmother just went, oh, "What?" And, like reached into a purse and pulled out a pomegranate, and it was there you go, and then he stopped crying immediately.
Wow.
So children and pomegranates.
Yeah. It's fruit of the
It
gods.
sure is. Oh, boy, oh boy.
But anyway, the thing is, in the Cherry Orchard, which is a play that Chekhov wrote, do you know what's introduced in Act 1?
What is?
A gun.
Cherry Orchard.
And do you know what never fucking comes
By
back?
introduced, it's like up on the wall. It's the back of the set. The set
Yeah.
is a drawing room, and there's a gun in a frame usually on the back wall.
Yeah.
Which is like an important Revolutionary Guard.
That's-
So this is a
Make
prank
the
that
rules
he's
so you can
pulled?
break the rules, my dude.
I think what it is he's probably said it after the Cherry Orchard because he's like,
Yeah.
no, that gun should have gone
Oh,
off.
man,
Or is
I
it
fucked
a, or is
up.
it a complaint that a famous literary agent, like a reviewer of the time, was like, "I was disappointed that the gun which appeared in the set was not you."
And Chekhov's like, that's what I'm always saying. I'm always saying it. I'm mad about it.
The gun is the 5th character.
And
Yeah, actually, that gun was satire. That's why it didn't go off.
I think you pointed out as well that it's a rule that people break a lot, and like at the moment, for instance, Yellow Jackets is very popular.
Yeah.
And they talk a lot in the first episode about going to nationals.
Absolutely. And you think this is a show about going to nationals.
Yeah.
And then very quickly,
Drop the storyline.
They drop that storyline. When are they going to get
When
to
are the
nationals? I signed up to watch soccer.
So season 3.
What number was that then?
Hype train. There's a hype train. It's worth mentioning.
Oh, Hype Train!
It's a 3.
No hype
Three
train.
goes the other way.
You were holding it upside down.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, it is the when are they going to get to the fireworks factory principle. That is actually. So anyway, this is Chekhov's sword, where we are going to build you an adventure in kind of 2 parts. So the way that
just worked out
could you
that
stop
threes-
looking at dice?
I thought it
Dave,
was
can you
an
confiscate them,
E.
please? We don't
I'm
need them
taking
today.
your dice away.
Thank you.
Debbie just discovered.
Demi, if you really behave yourself, next episode you can graduate to having 1 6-sided die.
Okay, one.
Demi just
and then
discovered that a 3 on its side.
It's a very square
backwards
3.
Is an E.
Yeah, and it's a very square 3.
Did you ever play with a calculator?
You never wrote boobies on a calculator?
No.
Well,
I was
we've got a
looking
lot-
at him instead on a
Cal-
woman.
Calculators.
Yeah.
So the genre that and we've had like a day to sort of think about this. Nobody's like, one of the rules of Chekhov's Gundam is that we don't prepare anything.
It's not called Chekhov's Gundam.
The popular podcast and stream Chekhov's Gundam has very few rules. The first is that is its name. The second is that we don't really prepare anything until we get into the room.
Third is no shirts, no shoes.
No shirts, no shoes, no problem.
it's already Chekhov's Gundam is by Lincoln Michelle is already maybe some fanfic. Oh well, can't use that. Sorry.
Sorry.
All right, it's called Mr. Pooh's Toilet.
Ooh, I love
That's
it.
what I wanted.
All right, so here on Mr. Pooh's Toilet, we sort of.
oh my god!
What about
I'm Mr. Pooh.
What about one big sack of poison buttholes? What do you think?
Yeah.
Huh?
Big
Like-
sack.
Damn it.
Something like that, but not that.
Like that, but not that. Okay, I'll keep thinking.
So we're going to do this in sort of two halves. The first thing we're going to do is sort of talk about the world and sort of build up this sort of sandpit for the players to play in without really thinking about the players. And then in the second half, we're going to be talking more about the play and like encounters and really focusing on how you, for want of a better word, like guide your players through this world without feeling like they're on rails.
And if you use any of these ideas, they're completely up for grabs. So if you want to use them for your own D&D or any other kind of role-playing game, you can. We might try and write up some of these notes.
no, like depending, because again, we don't really know.
Don't run up and sell it though.
Yeah.
We don't really know how Mr. Pooh's toilet works. But one thing, like so
Simon, I think one of those cut in half toilets would be very useful here to see
like
how
those-
it works.
Yeah.
But if
But what does the toilet of a poo look like?
well, hang on, if his name's Mr. Pooh, that could just be his name.
But sure, but maybe it's a jacuzzi.
No, it's a toilet. It's labeled as a toilet. It's a regular toilet, probably.
But what does toilet mean to him?
Bed.
Stay tuned.
I'm going. I know it's this fucking podcast. It's a mistake.
So one thing that we're going to experiment with this week actually is what it actually looks like if we watch this. If one of us watches this VOD back and makes you a module, if that
Chekhov's come.
I said that in the chat.
Well, you didn't say it with the enthusiasm of Dover Quinn.
Very good.
So if this episode of Chekhov's Come can be sort of
See, I love that.
pretty easily turned into a module, that might be something that we put out on the Patreon or something like that, but we're not making any promises because Mr. Pooh's toilet is a work in progress. But let's get to the genre that we're doing today. Because we thought we'd do a genre that we'd done in a season of Dragon Friends and that like has a lot of different ways to get into it. It's like, I feel like kind of making a bit of a comeback in popular culture right now.
This is a lead up to say calm.
And it is come. No, it's sort of Eldritch Horror. So obviously, well, not obviously, maybe in fact statistically you probably haven't listened to Dragon Friends, but well, actually if you're here you are.
I was going to say.
Well, I was thinking of everybody in the world, and then I realised that that's not,
They're not shooting
who's in the chat.
Did you say Eldritch Horror?
Yeah.
So what's the difference between regular horror and Eldritch Horror?
Well, I could sort of throw to Dave on this one.
I could ask you that question. What does it mean to you?
Well, no, I'm just facilitating chat here, okay?
Oh, right.
I asked first, and that's the rules. Whoever asked first
Doesn't
gets to
have to
answer first.
It's a little break.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, like, Eldritch Horror has probably been made most famous by a terrible man by the name of H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay, Lovecraft.
HP stood for HP Source.
Yeah, he was the man who invented. He invented anti-Semitism, this genre, and the Source. Those are the three things that he did.
What does HP in terms of the source stand for?
That's a great question.
Horny.
House of Parliament.
What?
Sorry, Simon?
No.
What did you say?
What did you say there, Simon? I feel like that didn't get as much attention as it should have.
Eldritch means weird and sinister or ghostly.
Yeah.
So it means ghostly
You're
horror,
lucky I
which
have
is
the
the same.
goldfish.
I think it's probably useful to sort of try and define it before we go further, just like a high school debate, because
Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen.
because also like a lot of the stuff that like is like the tropey stuff about Eldritch Horror is the stuff that I kind of find least interesting. So like
Tentacles.
I was going to say like a lot of people in the chat are talking about sort of
I
tentacles.
never
and
think of
beasties.
tentacles when I think of...
Really?
Cthulhu. All I know about Lovecraft is Cthulhu.
Yeah, I
the
think
call of
that's what
the
Cthulhu.
tentacles.
Yeah,
The
I
tentacles is
guess.
the only H.P. Lovecrafty thing that has tentacles is Cthulhu.
What about Mr. Tentacles?
And okay, so there's a character called Mr. Tentacles.
Yes.
Yeah,
He's a janitor.
Yeah.
I feel like Mr. Tentacles.
He's friends with Cthulhu.
Mr. Tentacles has got it's exactly that kind of name of a character that in Act 1 your parents are scared. It's a beloved children's story.
Yeah.
Like the Pillow Man or something.
What?
And then as you get as
McDonough.
Yeah.
Martin McDonough.
Who's the Pillow Man?
the Pillow Man.
It's from a play.
You know-
the Martin McDonough play?
Which Martin
The
McDonagh?
Pillow Man? It's a play
You guys
it's a
fucking
play called
watch
The Pillow Man.
plays. That's
No,
so crazy.
I'm-
You guys
Bully
go
us.
to
You
play.
can't bully us for knowing about plays.
I
Yes.
kind of can.
She can, she
I don't.
can.
When do you go to plays?
Is there a little man on stage?
What
Some
are you-
kind of fancy dress?
You can't even touch him. What are you doing?
Oh, you can. You get to do it once, and then you're asked to leave.
Quickly.
Yeah, the rule of a play is you're allowed to watch the whole play or watch it up to you touch the man.
Okay. I'll remember this.
Yeah.
Don't touch the man too early or you'll miss the ending.
GC Mandrake just made a good kind of point. Like Eldritch Horror monsters are often tentacled, but they're just as often all about body horror, like eyes and mouths in the wrong places.
I would say the cardinal rule of Eldritch Horror for me, Eden, is that Eldritch Horror. As a writer, I think you would agree this is a cop-out, but the cliched line of Eldritch Horror is he saw a colour, a shape, a being that defied explanation.
Yeah, whenever you read a line like that, guess what? You're reading Eldritch Horror, baby.
I reckon the colour out of space is like purple-green.
Well, that was an interesting thing about that Nick Cage. No, was it Nick Cage? Yeah, the Nick Cage movie, The Colour Out of Space. Because as a short story, which it was, H.P. Lovecraft could just go, boy, this colour.
It was scary.
It's like nothing you'd seen. And you're like, is it red? And Lovecraft's like, it's nothing like red. Is it green? You're way off. But because it was a movie, and that's very much a visual medium, the filmmakers had to be like, it's sort of a shimmery purple. I'm so sorry.
Should have done those scenes in black and white.
I mean, like, honestly, that would have been a very good idea. I don't know if anybody in the chat saw.
Or is Nick Cage?
Just like a kind of tessellated Nick Cage face.
No, I was saying if Nick Cage is in the chat.
Oh, Nick Cage is, yeah.
If you're watching Send Us a Dinosaur Bone.
What? Oh, yeah, he has them.
He has them, yeah, in his body.
Was there
He
a
replaced his
podcast
whole skeleton.
which was Eldritch Horror? It was like
yeah, so the Magnus Archives is pretty Eldritch Horror. I'd say another sort of trope of Eldritch Horror is something that Simon just said, which is sort of ancient gods waking up.
Yes, there are ancient gods that slumber beneath the realm of mortals.
That's scarier to me than all that other bullshit.
Yeah, and then there's
or a cow with 7 faces.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, omens, things like that. And as
I suppose I do like Eldritch Horror. Then.
You do. I mean, I watch.
Definitely do.
You like body horror.
I've watched.
I love body horror.
Yeah, I mean,
You've watched what?
well, I've watched 2 Eldritch Horror things with you. One of them was a surprise Eldritch Horror.
What one? What did we watch?
Well, Event Horizon is very, very Eldritch Horror.
Okay.
In space, because it's quite a robust genre.
It's quite a yeah. So yes, exactly. And also this is a bit of a spoiler. So like if you have like tune out in 30 seconds. But that Kirsten Stewart movie we watched, Underwater, where she's underwater.
What was in that was Eldritch
Well, she's in an
Horror?
underwater base, and for like 95% of the movie, it's just. It's bad being underwater.
And TJ Miller's here, and that sucks.
That sucks.
That's real bad.
It keeps wisecracking all the time.
Hardly RPG, first time chatter, also gives another good genre thing, which is fear of the inexplicable and unknown, a reminder of our insignificance in the universe.
Absolutely. I would say Douglas Adams is...
Is it the total perspective vortex?
Yeah, is Eldritch Horror.
Yeah. That was where I was going to go with that.
But at the end of Underwater, they're like, oh, it was Cthulhu. Do you remember when they're like...
Oh, there was a monster, wasn't there?
Yeah.
That was stupid.
But yeah, so I think that like those are all the things that I'd also put like a TV series or a book like The Terror in that category.
What about the TV series Lovecraft Country?
Absolutely not. That is
No, that's
romantic
wrong.
comedy.
I got that
What
wrong.
about the movie The Craft?
Horror.
Right.
Blue Crush.
Just straight up.
Blue Crush, absolutely.
What's
'Cause,
eating
like,
Gilbert Grape?
Surfing is a big part of Eldritch Horror. So Point Break. Point Break 2. Any surfing in What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
We don't know what was going on in that water tower in
Bill
the town.
and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Well,
They talk to death, don't
they
they?
do talk to death.
I think body horror is also worth drilling down into quickly, which is that body horror, as I understand it, and I can't watch horror films that have body horror. I find body horror
you're
too spooky.
You're a big baby in a nappy when that happens.
Yeah, I can watch a lot of horror movies, but I can't watch any body horror at all. I have to sit. If I even see a trailer, I have to sit and immediately read the Wikipedia synopsis of the movie, so it doesn't hold power over me anymore.
Yeah.
I tell you a movie that recently, and I like only watch horror and watch so much body horror. And recently I saw a movie that genuinely I nearly fucking threw up.
Yuck.
It was I don't know how you actually say it, but like if I'm just going to use my stupid brain, it's Titane.
I was going to say, is it Titane?
Fuck man, I was
Titane.
at Miles's house, and there were 3 times in the movie where I went and just had to turn around and not be watching.
Titane is a very clever movie because the trailer for it is very horny. So I reckon there's
Super horny.
a lot of guys who would have watched that film, and then it is an extreme body horror film.
Yeah, right.
There are some some horny though in it. There is like enough horny that you'd be like, well, that was nice, I guess. You know, really fucked up. I nearly puked like 3 times.
Somebody just asked if Twitch Play
What? What?
What's going on?
Twitch Play is that.
What?
Is Get Out Eldritch Horror?
No, I was trying to say that. I was trying to because it's good Twitch. It's good Twitch.
Twitch Plays
etiquette.
is a CG, yes.
Is Get Out Eldritch Horror? I don't think so.
Twitch Plays is an ACG.
Eldritch Horror.
No, it's horror.
No. That's very much
It's like
psychic. Isn't there like a name for it, like psychic metaphorical horror or
something
something?
like
I feel like I'm in limbo and this conversation is literally never going to end.
that. Sorry. So
This is the podcast.
but let's keep going. The other big thing that I want to talk about, which kind of informs gameplay.
Turns me into Turtles too. Secret of the Use.
Yes, correct.
Weirdly, what was it Toxic Crusaders? The
Toxic Crusader.
Toxic Avengers.
Yeah,
Toxic
Toxic
Avenger,
Avenger
right.
was body horror.
Yeah,
but it was
big time.
But it
Yeah.
was designed to sort of appeal to Ninja Turtles fans.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that was like an R-rated like trauma.
It was trauma,
film.
It was trauma, yeah.
And then it got turned into cartoons, I guess.
Yeah, a really friendly cartoon.
Yeah. So the other big one that I just want to talk about before we move on is obviously like terror and madness. That's like a big thing. People losing their grip on reality.
Which is you got to be is tricky. You've got to be careful about.
Yeah, and like
got to not call a
can I just give some background to
All
this? This is a moment in season 5, which we'll come to talk to, where we did a sort of Eldritch Horror Dragon Friends thing, and one of the things that Dave flagged really early on when we were writing
Not
it.
early enough. About episode 2. I think I came after we done episode 1. I was like, oh no. I thought about this a bit, and I think we are wading into waters uncertain.
It was by the time we had the crazy character, because I remember thinking, how are we going to play this? And we
Is that when Alex said Bonkers Town?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
when we were trying to come up with a name for the asylum.
And I'd already had the conversation where I was like, let's just make sure that we're treating this. We have a character who is meant to be driven insane by the glimmering of magical disease,
Yeah.
but they are an oracle of truth, and we were doing all of these tropes. But I was like, let's make sure that the joke isn't that they're crazy. And I thought you did a very good. With Thomas Smedley, I thought you played the character very well. I thought everybody was very respectful, and then we ended up.
Except for Alex.
Then Alex started calling the asylum Bonkers Town.
Yeah, it's a good name. Mandrake just
So if
asked.
you want to cancel us,
Mandrake just asked a good and interesting question, which is consider doing a different game system as opposed to Dungeons and Dragons, because there's lots of
Call of Cthulhu is the
Call of
famous one.
Cthulhu has those kind of sanity meter mechanisms built in. It's a good point. I think that because this is kind of like home baked one shot, that's something that we can kind of talk about with gameplay.
I think we're going to try and make these as system agnostic as we
Agnostic.
can.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, let's put some physical challenges in too, like the presidential fitness test.
What, like to defeat a monster, you have to do some push-ups or something.
Yes.
I'm into that. So
Or pull a tooth.
Pull a tooth.
Yeah.
Like clean out of your head.
Yes.
You can only do that. You can do that like.
You can do that 24 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. And
Does anyone still have milk teeth? Speaking of body
no,
horror?
because we're grown-ups. What are you talking about?
You know, I knew someone that had 2 sets of baby teeth that fell out before their 3rd set.
Were they a shark?
My
Hang on.
sister-in-law has milk teeth here, and she has like big boy cover-ups that go over the top to make
Oh,
it look like
really?
she's not a
like stilts.
Yeah,
Stilts
like
for
a
your
crown.
teeth.
Yeah.
I saw Jackass and I was really jealous of Steve-O's fake tooth. It's such a good bit to just pull your tooth out
Yeah.
and be like,
Our
hey.
friend Anthony Gooley has that and does that. And
Oh, really?
again, because I have the body horror thing, I'm like,
With like a little socket, like it's like a
you can
little,
just go. And he takes it out and plays sometimes when he plays characters.
Oh, that's good. That's the little thing we call range.
His trick, which is like in Mice of Many did it a couple of times. He often in plays he'll get punched in the face and he'll take the tooth out and he loses a tooth on stage.
That's cool. See, that's something you can do in the
is
theatre.
acting.
If you go to the theatre, and that's a moment you could go and touch them.
How can I even really...
You can touch Gooley. We know Gooley. We'll tell him it's happening.
All right, well, I am going to, first of all. But second of all, how close am I even going to be to his mouth watching this play?
It just depends on how good the ushers are.
And
How small the theatre? The Griffin, pretty close.
Yeah, you can get Belvoir, just run down those stairs.
get his tooth and get out of there.
Flying off the needles, just asked if there are 38 teeth. I can put up with a lot of bullshit in this chat, but I'm not going to stand here and watch as flying off the needle.
Aren't there 38 teeth? No, it's definitely 24. Haha, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Renee, you just got
Well, a child is born with all of their teeth in their head already, speaking of body
Yeah.
horror. So they have the baby teeth plus the adult teeth up behind them. That could be 38
That's
teeth.
fucked.
Do you want to hear something else bad that you won't like?
Yeah.
You know when someone has pregnant,
Why did we
they've
agree
got
to
Someone
this?
has pregnant.
they've got just 2 skeletons.
Yeah.
If you did it, and then there's another, and I'm
Whoa.
like, man, you should just keep that
if
second
I eat
one.
a small enough bird, there's 2 skeletons.
Yeah, if
You want to do an
If you're
Autoland?
in Autoland,
Yeah. No, I would-
I really like the idea of somebody saying, "Hey, you want to do an Autoland? Like, you want to go do a line?"
Go behind the sheds and do
You
it.
want to go and do Nangs or an Autoland?
Should we go to the bathroom and just do an Autoland? So yeah,
I just counted my teeth to make
And
sure.
you come
it was
out of the
24.
bathroom with the cloth still over your face. And I was like, fucking dickhead.
Wait,
Imagine if this is the way that Flying Up the Needles discovers that she has 12 too many teeth.
So let's talk about it. I
Well, like,
it's 28, not
like
24.
what do we like about it? What's good? What's exciting?
Well, I think we've kind of like covered off like the genre in general, and we kind of know what kind of world we're going to build. And as I said before, like it's pretty robust where you can set this thing. Does anybody like have any sort of ideas just to like kick things off on like where you could set a story like this?
Well, I have a question, and I think it relates to the season of Dragon Friends, which is like, it's hard to make a player feel existential dread.
It
you
is.
can make NPCs
Yeah.
feel it. So, like, is that?
I don't know. I don't know if that was a that might have been a failing on me and maybe on the format of Dragon Friends. I've always wondered that. There's a lot of so we played season 2 of Dragon Friends. We did the Strad von Zarevich, which I would say that history will not say that you created a very sinister and macabre villain.
Well, let's just see, okay?
But that adventure was written by Margaret Weiss and her husband, I believe, for
Count Dracula.
Strad von Zarevich.
No,
for-
her husband was Count Dracula.
Margaret Weiss and her husband, Count von Dracula,
Yeah.
for a Halloween party, and I think that there is a trope of scary D&D games. I've never fucking seen one, but I think maybe that might just be.
I think it's generally pretty hard to frighten people with fiction. I reckon I've read a lot of horror.
Do you reckon the
books.
people at Mary Shelley's spooky reading
my
weekend were like,
God,
"Oh
can
yeah, I'm
you
really
imagine?"
scared."
Oh, when's she gonna stop?
Yeah.
It's like we were like,
Mary Shelley is like, no, guys, come on. Like, we all listen to your stories. My wife has a story. Can we just please get into it?
I'm imagining it was like one of those like trips up the coast that we used to take in at uni, where like everybody just sort of plays ping pong and drinks beer, and those fucking writers are like, gather round.
Oh, he's got a cape on. He's got the fucking cape.
Speaking of Mary,
Tonight we shall tell stories.
the Mary Shelley thing was that they were at Lake Como, or I think they were in Switzerland or something like that.
Yeah.
But that was a year that a volcano had erupted, and it was basically the summer had been dark. The whole of Europe was like under a cloud of volcanic ash the whole summer. So it was a kind of a weird eldritch kind of.
Hey,
like,
that's fun. Why don't we talk about that? Like a kind of like permanent midnight sort of situation. Wherever we set it, like something's happened. Like there's been and that's another big eldritchy thing actually. Like weird natural phenomena. So like there's been a volcano erupted that's been dormant for a very, 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 very long time. That everybody actually just thought was a mountain, maybe. Thrown a bunch of ash up into the air, and now it's been night for months.
Unending Night is really fun because it's one of those things where it's like for a week everyone would be fine, but then it's a question of like how long before society starts
Well,
to
crops
not be
start
able
to die.
Yeah, there are structural problems. People stop being able to sleep because
Yeah.
they're not able to.
Do you reckon this happens in Finland every year?
Yeah, you have to get a special lamp.
Oh yeah, you do get a sad lamp.
Hey, yeah.
What do they do before the lamp?
Do we have
Candle
anybody?
lots
They
of
got
candles.
rickets.
Do we have anything in the chat about anyone in the chat who lives in a place with lots of night? Because I think that's really interesting.
Hello Min's got a good point as well, which is that if you were going to do this in D&D, you probably could still get a lot of mileage out of Barovia, the land of eternal darkness that Strahd has cursed. Go beyond the gates, the choking mists, you can't get out. It's always
Yeah,
a night.
yeah.
Can I?
Oh, sorry. Could we steal something from Barovia?
Yeah, yeah.
And do like, and I still don't know when or where this is set, but wherever it is that this ash cloud is sort of making it permanent night. nobody seems to be able to leave.
Yeah. There's a okay.
And Sorry.
Actually no, you go.
Well, I'm just because thinking because we did Carcosa and we did Ravenloft. Ravenloft seems like horror to me, like just straight up horror.
Yeah.
In that there's like a vampire and just things are like spooky.
Yeah.
So like Eldritch Horror, I just want to know again. It's like it feels like a slight difference.
So Carcosa is a reference to an Eldritch Horror writer, which is Robert Chambers.
But it seems like Eldritch Horror seems like less explicit to me than straight up horror.
This is why I was going to say I think the scariest way to have people not be able to leave is for them not to know why they can't leave, or either they decide they can't leave, or they leave and they
wake up in the
back.
morning and they're back.
Either they wake up in the morning and they're back,
cool.
or they just find themselves walking back in and they're like, what the fuck?
you could do it like, and I'm sorry, Demi, I'm going to mention another play, and you're just going to have to fucking live with it.
Great. Go ahead. No.
What's that Sartre play where they're having dinner and they suddenly realise that no one can leave?
The dinner that or something like that. Not that, but something like that.
But that's cool because like
The Exterminating Angel.
what?
Is that what you were thinking
I
of?
don't think so. It's not called the Never-Ending Dinner.
Big floppy dragon.
No exit. Thank you.
Hotel California.
And is it Sartre? I think it's Sartre.
Yeah, that makes sense. Existential shit.
But that's a really cool point. So like, is it that they? Okay, so options as you've laid out. We've got like some sort of like dome force field where they're just like
I never mentioned a dome force
I'm
field.
so obsessed with the dome force field. If you could just watch any movie other than the Simpsons movie.
Oh my god, this is sexism at its finest, honestly.
There's like there's some physical barrier.
Thank you
Dome
so
is
much
not-
for coming and doing the podcast.
Dome is not scary to me in the slightest
No,
at all.
I agree. There is you walk out of one end of town and then you find yourself walking back in.
Yeah,
That's
great.
the scariest one because I
Scarier.
think that it's scarier also than deciding yourself in the is it? I don't know. I think they're both scary, but I think to me it's scarier to be literally trapped and panicked that you've walked back in rather than walking back in and being like, why the fuck did I decide to come back here? Because that's still scary, but it's more muted and confusing. But I think finding yourself back in would be like, fuck this.
Another wrinkle which I really enjoy, which is again, it's like it's a trope and a cliche, but it's in those when you're in those kind of situations. There's another reason not to split up, which is that if you walk away from people and you lose contact with them, you become unstuck in time.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
So if you get
cool.
split up for a second, a week might have elapsed, an hour.
Oh yeah.
So
Okay.
splitting the party will really fuck the DM.
So let's say that in this place, both time and space are a bit squiffy.
Yeah.
Because of whatever happened
Is
with
that
the
a technical
volcano.
term?
Yeah, squiffy. I also like the walking out of town and then coming back the other way is good because it would take people a while to work out that was happening.
Yeah.
Not players. I just mean like in this world, it would take people a long time to figure out that's how it's happening.
And
Yeah.
that could be if players work out, they could shortcut to different places by
Oh yeah.
backdating it. That they can
Yeah,
go,
Pac-Manning it.
and they can choose to go back in time, or they can choose to go somewhere else.
I kind
by
of like
going
the rules always for me in Eldritch Horror. Once you try to play the rules and you learn the rules get changed on you though.
Yeah, sure.
So that could be
Totally,
a really good story beat.
Or a
which
really
is
good trap as well.
Exactly,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it
yeah.
feels like there are rules, but then the moment you try to
For
follow
instance,
them.
when you think that the rule is to stab yourself to get through a door.
Exactly, yeah.
But I feel like that's the exact distinction. In you go into horror, you go into the tavern, and the townspeople are all like, "Oh,"
There's a monster,
they're
yeah.
freaking out. But in this one, everyone's kind of weirdly okay with what's going on, despite there being no food left and the crops dying. And
Yeah, I think that's a really big part of maybe not this genre specifically, but there's like a really some of my favorite, most unsettling things that I've read are exactly that, where
Slade House, you
Yeah,
gave me
Slade
that, and I
House.
was like, the sense of doom in that was as good as like a horror fright, which I think is completely overrated.
Yeah, I
The
would-
Is that the
doom is
David
huge.
Mitchell?
yeah, the David Mitchell, not Peep Show, other one.
Yeah.
I thought they were the same person.
You what?
I thought
That's
that David
so
Mitchell, the
funny.
comedian,
David
wrote Slade House.
Mitchell wrote.
That's so funny.
Like you think he won the Booker Prize?
He's a very smart man. He's incredibly
He won the Booker
articulate.
Prize. Kill me. I thought he won. Yes, I thought David Mitchell won the Booker Prize. Clearly he didn't.
I don't even know if real David Mitchell won the Booker Prize, but he's like, All right, they're different men.
All right.
All right. We'll just have to trust you then.
Oh,
Weirdly, they're both married to Victoria Coren, though.
oh, cute.
So what if that? So I don't know.
Oh, I was just going to say quickly that the what Eden just said about the which is good for our protagonists is the feeling that something is very clearly wrong but nobody's acknowledging it. I love that. There's a short story by Thomas Ligotti called The Town Manager, which it just drips with that shit, and it's really, really cool. And I think that it's also a good thing for players too, because as you say, in Gothic horror, you've got somebody being like, "You got to kill the beast," and you sort of like, okay, well, and it becomes more of an adventure. The sense of unreal is really fun to play with.
Yeah, and like I think one of the things that I find funniest with it, maybe meaning to be kind of funny, but also really horrifies me, is like, you know, in fucking The Trial, when he's like, man, why? And they're like, just cause.
Yeah.
You have to go to court. And he's like, what the fuck? And then, alright. That shit is like, so, like, that is a worse nightmare to me than like being chased by a murderer. Just people being like, oh, well, too bad.
The sense of sort of unreality and the idea that you are on a different, like, plane to everybody else is a really horrible feeling.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I mean, it's. I think you should leave, but it's like the sense that everybody else is playing by rules that you can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody in the chat before described a lot of Eldritch Horror as a bad LSD trip, and I think that like partly, I don't know if you've ever wildly overestimated the amount of drugs you were taking at a function.
And be like, this is too many drugs for the Logies.
And then all of a sudden you realise that you're not. So let's set this at the Logies.
I was going
That's actually great.
Yeah,
Like a theatre.
What I was going to
yeah.
say was, and this is maybe the same thing, I really want, like, I think that it would be so fun to set it. It's a bit Mask of the Red Death. It's a bit Exterminating Angel, which is the film I was saying before. But it's like setting it at a feast or a luxurious place is really fun, because that's a great place for people to suddenly start worrying about preserving food, for people to be in altered states. Rich people are a really fun group of people to be trapped somewhere.
Yeah, and I also love the sort of if you open it with a town that we come to understand has been trapped for maybe 100 days, and it's in the middle of a feast, we already have this sense of like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
There's a great moment in, and I brought it up a couple of times, and I'm sorry, but in The Terror.
The Terror's great.
Ben's reading The Terror.
I love The Terror.
But it's
What is The Terror, for those of us who have not read The Terror?
The Terror is a Dan Simmons novel. He wrote Hyperion and a couple of other really great sci-fi. It's like a historical horror thing. It was made into a BBC
I've only seen the
show
TV series. Yeah, it's great.
with like Kieran Hines and
Jared.
Harry Seldon, that
Yeah.
guy. And it's basically like a true. Well, it's not. It's true up to a point. About
See if I can spot the point.
yeah. You put your hand up when you think that Dan Simmons has started to tippy-tap away.
Okay.
So, 2 sea captains and like 100 men go to find the Northwest Passage in like...
Olden days.
Yeah, in the olden times.
Okay.
And they become trapped on the ice and stay on the ice for like a year waiting for it to thaw.
Okay.
It doesn't thaw.
Yep.
And then a ghoulie starts picking them off one by one.
It's like
keep going.
In the thing, it's like they're like, is it a polar bear? And it's like, kind of a polar bear.
Yeah, it's that uncanny
Yeah.
thing that like this plays in. And it's so funny because the monster in the BBC series was so weird looking, and
It was great.
And I was like, when I was reading the novel, I was like, I wonder how Simmons describes it and if they were true to that. And he really does. He's like, before him, he saw a kind of fucked up bear with a weird little head. But yeah, so one thing The Terror does really well is that one of the most unsettling scenes in the whole, and I think this is in the series too, is like they've been trapped on the ice for like a year and a half, and they decide to have a masquerade ball,
That's great.
to raise the spirits of the men.
It's like in Slaughterhouse 5 when they put a play on.
Yeah. The terror is about how fuckable the Irish are. You're not wrong.
Do you know this is a bottle episode I just realised, which is a really fun thing to do in D&D because it's about escaping a space. It's just locked in an elevator.
Oh yeah.
So structurally, it's really fun because you're going to, maybe we're getting too much into the gameplay mechanics of it, but you're going to set up a location, you're going to set up characters with competing goals of how they want to achieve escaping, presumably.
Yep.
Maybe even some of the characters want to keep everyone there, whatever. And you're not going to meet really new characters, or if most you're going to meet like one new character, which is the ghoulie.
Yep.
And you're going to try and navigate this space that's impossible to escape. That's a bottle episode.
Yeah, that's fun, and that's good for a one-shot too.
Yeah.
I think. What's the time? Okay, so like we can talk about like the story and the setting for another like 10 minutes, and then I want to talk about the play because I think that's going to really affect things. When do we want to set this? Because like so the stuff that we all agree that we like is about 100 days ago there was a volcanic eruption throwing ash and maybe some sort of ghoulie into the
boogers.
What if it was something like, I'm thinking a little bit, it's a bit Beauty and the Beast, but it's like the town had decided.
It turned into candlestick.
No. The town had decided that they were going to go and fight the thing that was threatening them, the hag on the hill, the monster on the mountain, whatever it is, the thing on the elevated terrain. And they decided to have a feast because they were going to go out in the morning, and a spell got cast on them so that they could never leave that feast.
Oh, okay.
And what might be really interesting is, I think what you were saying, which is that the adventurers will walk in, because you can get in, but you can't get out.
So it's a valve.
It's a valve, and the adventurers walk in like day 50. Because you speed it up for the one shot. The adventurers walk in when it's already been going on for a bit too
Oh, definitely.
long.
Yeah. I think we definitely don't have time in a one shot for them to suss a lot of stuff out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not fun to roleplay a growing sense of unease
Well, that is something that's a
amidst
really.
the Northwest.
But you have to. I think you've got to get players into it before, because I did some DMing and I would be like, oh, I'll set up this big challenge for them, and the players looked at it and were like, well, we're not going to do that. That's much too dangerous. I was like, so you've got to make it, at least at appearances, look kind of normal, so they'll at least go in.
Well, yeah,
But the flip side of that is just that players are genre aware, and the most obvious example that we've all experienced of that is when we play that the end of the world game that we sometimes do when we tour Dragon Friends.
Yeah.
We do this kind of zombie survival end of the world
Where
game.
we play ourselves.
Where you play yourselves, but people are as a DM, it's really fun to go, oh, you show up, but Dave's coughing, and he says that he got bitten by a dog, and everyone's like, he's a fucking zombie, let's kill him. People are genre wary.
Yeah, and that's a big thing to talk about too, because like it's a really difficult thing in D&D, and especially in D&D for an audience too. And I feel like sometimes when we're talking about like storytelling on the stream, we forget that the version of D&D that we play, which is live for an audience, is actually kind of different to how you necessarily play it at home. But yeah, like there's a very good chance that your players are tremendously genre aware. I remember Hing killing a very important NPC because he was just coded as a bad guy.
Was the NPC Demi?
No, it was me.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I never brought that up with you merely mentioning you hear a fucked up giggle and Simon saying it's Demi. It wasn't you? Who said it?
I might have. Yeah, it was one of us.
It was one of you.
It was
It
one
was
of
before
us.
I really knew you.
I think it was you.
So Leah, let's go back to fundamentals. I think my instinct is that a house you can't leave is too small. I think a town you can't leave with a house in it, where over the course of 50 nights, the kind of upper crust of the town have gathered.
Maybe that's where everyone is. Like, nobody is in that rest of the
Well,
town.
what about like a manor house? Like everyone's abandoned the town. First of all, you find the abandoned town because everybody's gone to the manor house for the feast.
Okay, I like that. Can we add another dimension to it, which is one thing that
Some kind of bear on the northwest.
some kind of ice ghoul. No, but that is actually embarrassingly close to what I was going to suggest. What I would suggest is to add a little bit of frisson to the whole thing. And Simon, rather than having the whole town evacuated, I wonder if there's a way of doing it like it's a the gentry, like the lords, have all gathered there, but still the kind of peasant folk are still in their part of town, and they're getting picked off one by one by some kind of high schoolie, for instance.
The only thing I would say is is we don't want it to just be season 2 Dragon Friends, where it was like where wolves were attacking the town and everyone was hiding in the church. It's magical, right? At first they were hiding in the church, or they decided to have a feast in the church or something, and now they can't leave.
Well, what about if some of the village people are like, they're hiding wherever they're going to, but then some of them, like, they wake up and like wherever they barricade themselves in has been like cleared away, and somebody has gone out because they're drawn to the feast, and they're like pressed against the window to try and
drawn to the
sup
feast.
at whatever is keeping the other people there, kind of thing. So if you breathe in the smoke or whatever too much, you get drawn to the hunger of to be the feast or something like that.
Why do we think? Because this is story still. Why do we think our adventurers go there? Like I liked in I don't know if this is actually in Ravenloft or not, but I liked in our Ravenloft how they were basically tricked into coming there, and then it was like, sorry, you can't leave until we sort this out.
So the thing in traditional Ravenloft is that the gates of Barovia, if you walk through them, you can't leave.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing that we had taken. The idea that somebody had called them makes sense. I like the idea, going back to sort of, again, like the idea that there is a community that was at war with a ghoulie, the monster on the elevated terrain, that they've been cursed by this thing, and they've retreated into a space that's like a big creepy manor house or a town hall or the sewers or some space inside an otherwise abandoned village, and they're now trapped, and this creature has just like got them where they want them, or is feeding off their life force or whatever. You could then, in that situation, as a hero, you could hear about a monster is ravaging a town, and then arrive too late, find the town abandoned, but there is a light on the hill in an old manor house, and think, oh well, maybe the survivors are there, and accidentally walk through that valve. Like that for me is...
That's good.
I think either that, or if the monster is kind of... What was getting in my head is like kind of the Thing-esque, like one of you's been taken over, and that person somehow has lured... They're like, well, we need to lure more people in to appease the beast.
The monster at the party is really... I mean, it's Phantom of the Opera, but it's fun. It's
An
really
invitation
fun.
is nice because it fits into the dinner party thing. Where they're like... to visit the Lord, or even like a contact or an old kind of like colleague or something like that.
And adventurers love to be invited to see the Lord. Like they love to go.
They love it.
That's why they're
They love to
adventurers
see
and
the
not
Lord.
farmers.
But then you also get the fun thing that if the monster is somewhere in the house or controlling someone in the house, and then you kill everyone in the house because they're baddies, and then the curse is broken, you end up with adventurers in a house and they've killed the Lord.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you get that extra added...
I do really like the idea, not getting too much in the gameplay, but I really like the idea of the ghoulie has to be in the house as well, and that the only way to get out and to free everyone is to work out who it is and kill them, because that's a really simple one.
Yeah, I think that's all compatible. The only thing I think is more in keeping, I don't know if it's in keeping with the genre or not, but I think I prefer it, is rather than the event, the thing that's sealing everybody in, being a retaliation or a preemptive strike from our beast.
Yeah.
I think I find it more interesting that a natural or maybe unnatural phenomenon unrelated to all this happens, and as a result, this thing can thrive.
And that's Eldritch, because it's like a quirk. There's no malevolence.
There's no malevolence there. It's just completely separate to the
Or
thing.
if there is a sentience, it's so impossibly fathomless that it doesn't even comprehend your suffering.
It's beyond evil.
And I think the Manor House is really fun, and the Manor House after 50 Days is really fun because, I don't know, have you guys read High Rise by J.G. Ballard? It's like they made a movie with Tom Hiddleston, and apparently it was very good. But
I never saw it.
Go watch it play, Mr. Book.
But High Rise is great because it's about a group of very well-to-do, well-heeled people slowly losing their mind in captivity and trying to pretend that they're not.
Yeah, that's great.
So I kind of feel like that can be a vibe that they walk into. That's the sort of thing that Demi was talking about, where it's like our adventurers immediately before they're engaged with any kind of like supernatural whatever, realize that these people are not behaving in a normal way. And the way that...
Because they won't be like, we're trapped. They're like, oh, welcome, more fresh faces for the party. And they're all masqueraded. They're all wearing masks, obviously.
You can play the madman then. If you want a madman character, the madman is actually a sane person who is like, we're trapped here, this is going crazy, da-da-da, but everyone's like, don't listen to him.
I reckon there should absolutely be at least one faction within that party who believes that they need to sacrifice somebody to break the spell, who are slowly waiting for the room to get radical enough for them to do it.
And everybody else thinks it's dinner theatre.
One person who thinks this is a how to host a murder party that's just sort of run past it since by date.
100.
NerdClick says, have people dying in order of most recent to enter. And then an invitation is used by the current occupants to extend how long they live.
No, that's it follows logic.
That's really funny.
Did you ever see, I was going to say the other thing this is reminding me of is, did you ever read those SCP creative spooky horror?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so there was one called Season Opener, which I really liked, which is a video of a opening game in a university basketball match, but every time it's played, they're starting to remember every time it's been played, and so at first the basketball players go through the exact motions, and then sometimes they're sort of caught as if they're in a moment of weird deja vu, and then after about play through 47, they start to realize and tell each other that they're trapped in the game and they're having to play it again.
That's great.
And by the end, they've like set up camps and they're sacrificing each other and they're refusing to play and they're killing each other to try and wake up and escape the VHS.
Oh man,
What is it called?
SCP is great. I would love to read like how much, because it's all Creative Commons.
Yeah.
And quite aggressively so. I'd love to know how much fucking money has been made off these delightful nerds.
Totally.
Because like Slenderman was something awful, but like there's been like...
they've come up with so much. I mean,
like the game, Control.
Control is all SCP.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Weeping Angels in Doctor Who is basically SCP.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What is SCP? Sorry,
It's called Secure, Control, Protect, and it's
But it was a brand of peaches.
It's that also. A terrifying
you love
brand
it if
of
you don't know.
peaches.
If you haven't got
I don't eat them.
No, Debbie, they're in a tin.
SPC.
Yeah.
SPC, baked beans and spaghetti.
Yeah, no,
With little
SCP
human.
is a creative, as Ben says, it's a creative writing project. The common idea is that you work for an X-Files shadowy Illuminati government agency whose job is to protect and contain paranormal things that are dangerous.
Control Rock.
And they just write everything in as heavily redacted log files
so
about.
good. It's
great.
And you could write anything you want, and it just gets submitted to the website as a log.
It rules.
It's really, really good.
Control. It's even in the fucking name.
Yeah.
How did they do that?
No, I have no idea.
Well, how does a man say I'll pay you $500 to make a game about a goose that causes trouble?
Okay, so simple question.
The C in SCP Peaches stands for containing in tins. Secure, contain, peaches.
Is that a good time to break?
Yeah, I think so.